Subscribe to my YouTube channel and click the bell icon for the latest film interviews, features, and recommendations on the movies that matter.
Guys, this is so exciting. I just finished watching the show. I was telling you all earlier that I consider myself like your absolute basic audience, and I'm sure that there's plenty of people that watch the show that, like me, don't know a lot about finance and about stocks and still kind of got completely sucked into it. And I think that is really one of the big achievements of the show, that it stops being about the jargon and about the about the actual details of the fraud and the scam, and it really is about the people and the ambition and the story of really what happened. I want to start with Sucheta. Sucheta, you wrote the book in 1993 with Debashish. It took 17 years before it was made into this series, but over the years, was there interest to adapt it? Has there been interest from the film business, from television, to adapt it? And how involved did you know you wanted to be when they were going to adapt it, when you sort of gave up the rights in a sense?
You're on mute, Sucheta.
So yeah, there has been a lot of interest on and off. In fact, every 2 years there's someone or the other who's been coming and meeting us and wanting to know. And in fact, when Samir sort of started this conversation on Twitter, another one of those, because I think people saw the complexity of it and they got cold feet, because there's just too much there. And even if they wanted to handle just Harshad Mehta, it's just too complex. And, I marvel at the way they have explained the BRs and created situations in which to explain things in such a simple language. So lots of people talked, they got cold feet, nothing ever happened. And even when Samir approached us, I think until we actually signed it, we said, even after we signed, actually, we were wondering whether it'll ever happen. That's the truth.
And how involved did you know you wanted to be?
Honestly, Devashish is very into films, but it's not something we understand. And it made no sense for us to be involved because we would just interfere probably. And I think they took a very reasoned decision to keep us out, and I think that's worked for them.
Samir, what convinced you that the time was right for this adaptation, for this story, and what was your pitch to Sucheta? And also, why did you go to Hansal for this?
Actually, this book I have read a long time back. It's 27 years actually, not 17.
Oh, sorry. Of course.
It's the time it came, and so I had read it before. I'd wanted to do this actually around 2011-12, but obviously the time wasn't right, and it's a tricky subject. So when we set up Applause, this is the first thing. This is one of the early things that we thought of. That let's do this. So we reached out to her. We spoke to her, got the book rights. And we had the rights, and we were at the same time talking to Hansal at that time about working together. And it was like, everything happened quite immediately. We had the book, met Hansal, and I told Hansal, we've got this book, we want to make it. He said, this is what I want to make. And that was it. We signed up, shook hands, and got moving. So it was all pretty quick, and it was something that we wanted to do because as a story to be told, it's a really important story, of the 80s, of a very, very colorful character, of a period in time, pre-internet, pre-mobile, pre-computers in that sense. And, a wonderful, great story. And India has not really seen a genuine financial story. The closest we get to it is, Oberoi Khandan ka Lota Waris and Karono ka Karobar. That's the closest that, we get to this subject. So that's what, it was something to be done, so we did it.
The reason I would imagine, and this is to Sucheta, Samir, and to Hansal, the reason that one adapts, retells a story from the past is because it is resonant in the present, or it has some bearing on the present or the future. To all three of you, why do you think this is a story that has special resonance in these times that we're in today?
Hansal?
Yeah. I think the story has resonated even more today because it's ultimately a cautionary tale.
Yeah.
You see, it's not a story only about Harshad Mehta. It's about systemic rot, and that systemic rot has just gotten more and more sophisticated. The rot continues. It's just more sophisticated and it's far more complex. Cautionary tales, when told with simplicity, when those are simpler times, they look simpler because they were lesser devices, for you to complicate things. It was bureaucratic. There was a lot of paperwork. There were people who asked me that, he just changed it with his hand, but well, that's how it was. I mean, it looks unbelievable now, but that's how the world was, and that has continued. I mean, just the methods have become more sophisticated, and we've seen one scam after the other being, unraveled, and we ultimately arrest the individual and not the system. So there's a dialogue in the show. So he says, कि मतलब system को थोड़ी arrest कर सकते हैं.
Right.
And that is the truth. Sucheta's book, when I read it, I read it in 2005, I think. And I wanted to make it into a film. Nobody wanted to then produce it as a film. And I'm thankful that it never got made into a film. That book and its complexity, and what you're saying about it being easy to understand, is because we had the long form, of storytelling to tell the story. I think 2.5 hours would have meant really, condensing it and making it a bit messy.
So do you agree? I mean, with his explanation for why it's relevant today?
You're asking me?
Yeah.
I completely agree with him. And I think one of the important lessons, if anyone wants to learn them, is what hubris does to you. I think one of the reviews I saw that Harshad began to believe in his own myth. And this has happened repeatedly. There are 5 or 6 big stars in this world who've just gone bust. And one of the main reasons is they thought they're invincible. They thought they had political support. And, in fact, we joke, since we've seen through so many scams, that the politician is the first to vanish when there's a problem. So everybody who thinks that we've got the politician on our side, that man is the first to ditch you. You're on your own. So whether you're a broker or your bank employee, it's not Harshad alone. They're the ones who go into jail. Never the regulator, never anybody in government, and never a politician.
Samir, you want to add something here?
You know what? I mean, adding on to what you're saying, and one other thing that I really thought is, helped in this resonating so much is that as a story, it's that, your classic rags to riches story. It's that, the story of, someone coming from nowhere and becoming, the real most successful person. It demonstrates that, with ambition, with intelligence, with, street smarts, you can sort of do stuff, and the character, the way he's been written, the way he was, and the way Pratik has played him. He's like he's like a classic, like your angry young man actually. He comes and he goes and does shit and makes it happen and all of that. And I think a lot of the younger generation, one, of course, as I say, that because we're surrounded by scams, so it's a familiar kind of thing. And then you are amazed to see that this guy pulled off this stuff in this period. And then, you feel, in a weird way, you've always felt bad for the anti-hero, right? That you said that, well, no, he may have done wrong, but he was not alone, kind of thing. So, and I think that is really sort of, and then of course after that, all the dialogues and the story and the the Gujarati twang and all of that, it's really sort of set things on fire.
I will ask Hansal about that, the anti-hero and the feeling of empathy or sympathy for the anti-hero, but I want to bring the actors in. Pratik, Shreya, both of you are so extraordinary in your roles. Even though you all don't necessarily, and I think that's a great decision to not model you all physically, they were clearly not looking for you all to look exactly like Sucheta and Harshad. There is an effort, but it's not an obsession, clearly, because you all channel the spirit of the people, and I think that's beautiful. I want to ask you, what was there? What became your entry into these characters? I mean, was it the script itself? Was it conversations with Sucheta, with Hansal? Did you all have those conversations? Was it videos? Was it research? What became your entry point to sort of understanding and figuring out these people that you were playing? In your case, Shreya, Sucheta, and of course Harshad, for you, Pratik.
So for me, like you very aptly put it, we did the basic housekeeping, which means we read all the articles, we had multiple conversations, we dived into the archival footage, read articles, especially because Sucheta has a very distinctive voice. So we did all of that, basic housekeeping, right? But the script was so fantastic. And any question or doubts that we had were always cleared. And the one thing, a lot of this credit goes to Hansal, because what he told us, I think, was the brief to everybody on the show, was because we're all modeled on real people, was to, again, not mimic anyone, like you so rightly pointed out, because there was a very thin line between creating a character and telling their truth as opposed to making a caricature, when we really wanted to avoid that. So everything that we did, we wanted to internalize it. So if there was a mannerism, if there was a characteristic that we wanted to portray, it should feel lived in, because these were lives that were already lived and told, and very famously so. So anything that we did was internalized in a way that we hoped people would see the truth behind our actions, see the purpose and the spirit of the character and the truth that we were trying to portray. And, hopefully we did that.
I think you did. Pratik? Pratik? Yeah. Pratik, are you there?
I think he's frozen.
Yeah. So for me, as Shreya also rightly said, that you were. Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Now
can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So as Shreya also said correctly, that was the instruction, or maybe guru mantra for all of us, that whatever you do, make it a part of your body, and it should never be forced. So just get into the feel of the character. For me, it was a different journey altogether, because nowhere I look like Harshad Mehta. From my physique to this face structure or anything, because he has a squarish frame and mine is a long face. So it's a different look altogether. So then we tried to be as close as possible as far as the body transformation is concerned. But internalization of the character was the main brief, and that's where we worked. Another interesting part is that when you create a character like Harshad Mehta, around whom there are a lot of theories, or there are a lot of things written also. There are a lot of things that people have written everywhere. Because of him, a lot of people have lost their lives, and biggest cheat and the biggest scamster, everything. Even after knowing everything, I had to portray this character from a neutral perspective. Correct. So that it is open for the audience to interpret. Now that's an interesting part for me as an actor, and it's an interesting challenge also.
It's another interesting thing that because of Pratik's wonderful portrayal, people are calling me the villain, which I'm taking offense at, because I'm not the villain. Sucheta Dalal is an awesome person who did great things.
But it's very interesting that you all say this, because that's really the question I wanted to ask Hansal. Hansal, the tricky thing about making a film or a show about a person that is or was a criminal, the tricky thing about humanizing a man who has been vilified is the possibility, of course, of creating a sympathetic portrait, and that is certainly what we see, of even glamorizing the actions or the crime. What gaze did you want to have, Hansal? And I know that you're someone who has a great empathetic eye. We've seen it in your films. One of the things that really separates your films from other people's films is that you have this amazing empathy. And was that going to be maybe something to be very off in the case of this project specifically?
Yeah, I try, when I pick up, I found Harshad a fascinating character. And also a character that, I felt I knew, because I grew up with many Harshad. You sort of, as a Gujarati growing up in, South Mumbai, most of your friends are either in Dalal Street, or they are selling, they are in the cloth market. They're trading in something or the other. So, I felt I had, so I just wanted to portray him without really judging him. You see, the idea is not to judge either anybody, whether it is Sucheta, whether it is Harshad, not to judge anybody. And I try to observe his life with empathy, everybody, even Sucheta, with empathy, and she was very, very committed to telling the story, to bringing out the truth. And, sometimes perhaps, in these times, you might find her obsession almost villainous, because we have stopped seeing journalism of that kind. So somebody, a very senior journalist called me and said, "Hey, you've shown the journalist as the hero. Why?" I said, "It's because it's very important at this time to put out that message that journalism of this kind still exists, and it is important for younger people who intend to get into journalism or who read, who consume so much, to know that the truth is out there if somebody is willing to tell it. That people like Sucheta Dalal existed, and perhaps they still exist. Somewhere in some corner somewhere there is still a Sucheta Dalal who is willing to tell the truth. So for me, it was a matter of and Harshad. For me, characters are driven by the circumstances, and greed is also a circumstance. You make money, you get greedy, and that greed drives you to do things. Nobody intends to scam the system. Nobody intends a crime. The crime becomes a result of your action, and that was my gaze. And it's always been that. You've seen my work, so it's always been that. Whether it was Omar Sheikh, Shahid Azmi, or Professor Siras, all of them had their share of flaws.
Right. To both actors and to Hansal, is there one scene more than others that was most interesting for you to shoot? Also, perhaps because it was a scene that you felt was key to understanding your respective characters. Do you remember that one scene for the two actors? And Hansal, for you, again, the scenes that you felt were sort of key to decoding, why this was an important story to tell.
For me, it was the hotel scene where basically the wine and the bribe. Again, I really like that because I remember when we were doing reading sessions and all of that, Pratik and I were very much looking forward to shooting that because again, it's both of them are rising in ranks. Again, like we earlier discussed, their ambition on two different sides of the same coin, and to see like them clash, I thought that was. I mean, it came out also wonderfully thanks to Hansal.
It's a great scene. He's the charmer, and she cuts him down to size completely. It's such a great scene, actually.
It's my favorite scene. Yeah.
Pratik, for you?
Oh, there are lots of favorite scenes because my journey from the character's journey from confidence to ego, passing that overconfidence and arrogance in between, was an interesting plot. So each and every stage, there are different things which depict it clearly. So one of the scenes which I love the most is Harshad's and Bhushan's confrontation scene.
In the end.
Towards the end.
Yeah, in the end.
Correct.
So his entire understanding, it's a very, very complex emotion that he is going through. That person like me, I mean, how can somebody cheat me in front of my eyes? And I could never understand this.
Correct.
That's very frustrating for him. At the same time, he was absolutely scared. He was just trying to put a strong face, but he was scared that I don't want to go to the jail again for this. Which I have not done something for.
It's also the first time we see him in that way, right? I mean, we've seen he doesn't usually lose his cool. It's the first time he gets physically violent. He slaps him, and the way that he abuses him. Yeah. It's actually a great scene. Yeah. Hansal, for you?
Yeah, well, Pratik stole my thunder because you see that scene we shot, I think, on the 10th day of shoot.
Yeah.
So the characters had not really gone through their complete arc. And that scene was slightly freshly written because, we had written the first 9 episodes. The 10th episode was still work in progress while we were shooting. So we had read the first 9 episodes together. We had a reading session, at the Sony office, and we had read everything else together. So sort of the reading process got us sort of involved in the character to some extent. And for me, it's the first day of shoot, the first scene that you shoot. That sort of begins my connection with the character and his journey. So on the 10th day when we shot this scene, I mean, I did not actually brief any of the actors. I just told them that, I hope you know your lines. Do whatever comes to you. And I told my director of photography, who's all of 24 years old, Pratham, and he was not even born when this whole thing happened. This can happen. So I told Pratham, just you have the camera, you just follow them. You keep your ears open and use your eyes to follow what you hear. Don't. I'm not going to stop you for any camera jerks or anything. Just go for it. And I said, I don't think you'll have more than 2 takes. And that's what happened. We had kept almost the entire day to do that scene. It was an intense scene. Nearly unedited, it was nearly 8 minutes. And the edited scene also was over 6 minutes. So it got shot, I think, in around 45 minutes, half an hour to 45 minutes, including lighting and everything. So the day that scene happened, I knew these guys were in character. And then,
but Rajeev, I must say something. Hansal does this, huh? He doesn't give you, like, he doesn't come and talk to you. So for the first few days, Pratik and I didn't know if you were doing a good job. Because he's not going to come up with, and then afterwards we're like, we're doing okay, right? He's like, yeah, don't worry, if there's something wrong, then I'll come and talk to you.
Is that
he
the
told me
process,
brilliant thing. Yeah, he told me interesting thing. When after the first day of shoot, I asked him, so was everything okay? I mean, is the character coming the way you visualized and ever? I can't tell you this now. You have to tell me because I'm going by your feel. So you have to tell me if you are not feeling. And I was, I could not say anything after that.
That's true. That's true.
Rajeev,
what is
I've been spoiled by people like Rajkumar and Manoj Bajpayee. And I always rely on my actor's instincts. And now Pratik and Shreya and this entire ensemble has spoiled me even further. When the actors, I mean, they're like the instruments with which you tell a story. They're the camera is simply a device that captures what the actors are doing. Their interpretation of a script. And I mean, I must say that what a brilliant set of actors. This was perhaps one of the toughest casting jobs for Mukesh Chabra, and I think perhaps the best since Gangs of Wasseypur.
Yeah. It's such a massive ensemble, actually. Yeah.
And very unusual because so many Gujaratis. Nobody casts so many Gujaratis in a show.
Right. Sucheta, did you ever go to set? Also, Sucheta, what was it like to watch the show? You've said that you watched it in entirety after. I mean, you watched it a little before it dropped, or was it with the rest of the world? I'm not sure. Was that, revisiting a case and a period of your life and your career that really has shaped the person that you are today? What was it like, kind of emotionally, and just to watch it?
It's quite amazing. I hadn't seen it before. Sameer showed us some rushes of certain scenes. That's all that I had seen before. So, like I said, that we were sort of, there was confidence in the fact that Sameer all the time said it's coming out very well. And Hansal, has such a huge reputation. So it can't go wrong. So there was that. But we had no idea how it's going to look. So when we saw the rushes, the first thing, you've been in the Times of India, so it's not exactly the same, but they created that newsroom. So the first sense was, okay, it is, it's true to life. And I think, when I watched the series, what I marveled at, of course, is the manner in which they've explained things, okay? The dialogue is fantastic, the music is nice, but creating those situations all the time, because it's a book, and I know how complex it was because, we had this source of ours and we used to sit with him in the night to understand. It's not, I keep saying it was a learning while we exposed the scam. It was 1 year of learning on the job. It's not that we started knowing everything. RBI's public debt office was such a shabby thing which nobody knew. So we were also learning on the job. And I think that has come across very beautifully because until I watched it, I wondered how on earth are they going to explain it. So I think Hansal's really brilliantly created those scenes and explained things really well.
I must give credit. I must give credit to the entire development team, the writers, along with applause. I mean, the team that created this is actually the people who wrote the script. I mean, we spent a lot of time writing. It was frustrating at times. कि बहुत time लग रहा है, बहुत time लग रहा है. But I think the wait was worth it because it was a very complex book. It was a very complex book and ultimately a script of 550 pages. Wow. It was like shooting 4.5 films. So it's an incredibly written. If I have to name the heroes of this show, they have to be the writers.
Yeah. It's an incredible adaptation. It's really
from Sucheta, Dalal to Karan Vyas, who was the last person to join the team, the dialogue writer. Everybody. I mean, it's a marvel of good writing. We are all products of our work is finally a product of how well things are written. Then I mean, you can easily cast a good actor and make a terrible film because your script is that. It's finally a product of really, really polished, very accomplished writing. So the entire success I owe to the script and to the writers.
True, so true. Shreya, were you anxious to know what Sucheta thought of your performance, of your sort of portrayal of her?
I think Pratik and Hansal will speak for me because we had met during the photo shoot of the announcement for the show. And it was a chance for me to meet the wonderful woman that I'm trying to portray and all of that. I cannot tell you the only thing I did, she will also notice my weird behavior and I'm sure she got tensed that a cartoon was going to take this job up. Because the only thing I did was just stare. That's all I did. And I'm still a little starstruck even now that she's here and that this show is out and she doesn't really hate me. So Rajeev, thanks, Thanks for this.
Samir, Hansal, what were the challenges in making Mumbai resemble the Mumbai of the 80s and 90s? All those beautiful shots of the Queen's Necklace, Dalal Street, of course, the stock market, SBI. I mean, the cars, the clothes. I mean, what is how conducive is the city today to be able to dress it up and make it look like, or to undress it to make it look like it was, back in the 80s and 90s?
Hansal, you should answer that.
It was. I mean, it was very, very tough. And again, it was being recreated by a team that was perhaps not born, or they must have been 1 or 2 years old. That era, none of them had seen it. So very often, we would go on set, I would say, "Arey, this phone is wrong." They would say, "No, it's a normal phone." I said, "No, this did not exist." So I had to keep reminding people about things that did not exist. They had never heard of a dot matrix printer. None of these people. They've taken these laser printers for granted. Typewriters, everybody was so awkward using typewriters because they're so used to their laptop keyboards. So there's so many. For me, it was just reliving that time. So it was very tough because the city has undergone, a huge amount of change. What used to be Bombay is a different city today. Mumbai, literally is not the same city.
So, it actually changes so rapidly. You're right.
Yeah, it changed so rapidly after. So, this was also a show about India at the cusp of change.
Right.
Liberalization and everything.
Yeah.
These were keywords that were being thrown around, but we saw change, after 91, 92, 93. We were just at that cusp. So I was in a time capsule doing it. It was tough. And, a lot of VFX work, which is very seamless. You can't see it, but it's a lot of, we have shot on crowded streets with modern cars, and we've changed all those cars. So that is something my co-director and my son Jay does very well. We had a little bit of practice while making Omerta, which was set in the same time. So we worked with the same VFX team on this one. It was just the task was around 5.5 times more complex because of the magnitude of the script.
One other thing, Rajeev, on this is that, this period, and we take it so much for granted, and you go out and you see it all the time, is the amount of cables that are there in Bombay and India, right? Just cables and wires all over. And this is a time just before satellite TV, right? 91, 92, just before that explosion happened. So it is, that cabling, and now we take it for granted. Any building you go to, there are tons and tons of, wires being flung around buildings, and
it was quite a nightmare, quite a nightmare. All those beautiful drone shots in all of the city, they've all been cleaned up. These are shots taken now. They've all been cleaned up. Buildings have been replaced. Wires have been removed, and there were very few. I mean, split type ACs were not there. So every building now has compressors outside. So we cleaned those compressors from every small building that was there in frame. So it was quite a mammoth task. Now when we look back at the show, we are at times surprised by what we pulled off.
Right. How many shooting days did it? How many days did you all shoot this?
85,
88, 90,
days.
right?
No. 85, 86 days in total.
That's pretty good, isn't it, for the volume of material?
Well, that's why they hired me because of that, because I make all these movies.
And Hansal
I
always
never
used to
have
keep
enough
saying
money.
that. Yeah, he used to keep saying that I used to reduce the amount of shoot days because of how fast I spoke.
Also, it was the post was done entirely during lockdown and remotely, huh?
Yeah, it was. That was, I mean, technology, really helped us. It's a big irony that, film that is about era that was low tech,
Right.
we completed it using a lot of technology.
Right.
I keep telling a lot of film students and everyone that, you must look at the platforms that we use, right? From, so it was all collaborative. Even the writing process was done on a collaborative platform. So we did not really have to have the writer's room also was virtual most of the time. I would put my comments, it would be constantly collaborative, and that went on till the final edit of the show. We actually were in the studio for around a month.
Okay. Pratik, I want to ask you, we see Harshad Mehta at home, and those are, to me, some of the most beautiful bits in the show, with his wife, with his family, with his mother. And then we see Harshad, the public figure, his daring, his ambition, his very cocksure kind of attitude. What was your approach to creating the family man and then the public figure? Was there a different approach? I mean, when you sort of tackled it, when you decided how you were going to play this guy, I mean, was there a very different way that you wanted to approach these two parts of his life, these two aspects that we see now on screen? Can you talk about how you kind of decided to play him?
Yeah, so I have seen such a lot of real life characters like this, that their work is so intense, which takes most of their time and energy. But the more with their family, they look like a different person.
Correct.
And they balance it so well, so easily, that you don't even come to know that they're having a dual personality kind of stuff.
Correct.
And he's almost like that, though there are certain elements which are consistently same, but still he could manage to do these things too. And I've seen such a lot of people do that. In fact, I personally have done that a lot of time in my house with myself. Managing that corporate life, going to the rehearsals, then performing shows in weekends, and then being at home, trying to be good husband, good father, and good son, and fighting for that always, being guilty, but that's another part. So I guess this balancing is a very, very natural thing which I have observed from people near me.
Right. Shreya, this show is as much the story of hard-nosed investigative journalism. It's what Hansal was saying earlier. What Sucheta achieved was incredible, and she really became a star journalist. I'm going to give you a little anecdote, and Sucheta, this might embarrass you. I remember being a teenager in the Times of India building when I joined as a journalist, and I remember that us that were really young would stand in awe when she would pass, and you're like, this is Sucheta Dalal.
You and me both, man.
Yeah, it was incredible. I mean, it was just watching her really kind of own that space in a sense. It's also really a wonderful reminder of serious investigative journalism, fact-based journalism. What the show says and what you say through. It's not about speculation. Get your facts, double check your sources, always have both sides of the story, and in that, and I think Hansal will agree, it's sort of perfect for these times when many of those values of journalism, in fact, have been forgotten. Can you talk about that, Shreya, and maybe Sucheta as well? Did you have conversations with Sucheta? I mean, you said you met her at the poster, so I'm guessing you didn't meet her before. Can you talk about that and how important that was, Hansal? Maybe you as well in pulling it off convincingly.
So yeah, this is sort of an homage to what journalism should be and what it was at a certain point of time, because she was one of the first female financial journalists of India. And at that time, she brought the word scam into public lexicon. Most of the major scandals, I believe, were broken by the press, like whether it's Bofors, whether it's the Ranjan Pillai or Harshad Mehta, and so many. Now it's just, I think, a matter of happenstance and a series of like bad events that unfortunately brings it out in the public purview. But it should be. It's an homage to what it should be. And I think Sucheta will be more equipped to handle this because she was in there, right, in the thick of things. And to see the dichotomy of what it is now versus what it was, I can't imagine it'll be anything less short of heartbreaking.
Sucheta, Hansal, do you want to talk about that?
Oh, Hansal first.
I'm sorry, I lost the question actually.
No, you're right. I made it too convoluted. I'm sorry. It really is like Shreya said, an homage to old-fashioned, hard-nosed kind of rigorous journalism, the rigor of journalism, yeah. Which a lot of people would agree is missing in today's times. How important was that for that to be really the focus, a big focus of this show, and that Shreya's character, I mean, Sucheta constantly saying that, double check the sources, or Dilip Padgankar saying, you can't do this without, we have to have someone on the record. I mean, just the importance and what you're hoping that also people will take away. This is the story of the scam. This is the story of these two ambitious people. But there's also a learning there about what journalism used to be and what it should be, perhaps.
Yeah, because I mean, it's Sucheta's character has come out of the writers and Priya from Sameer's team spent a lot of time with Sucheta, and they picked up all these cues. Because Sucheta always spoke about being meticulous about the sources of her stories, about verification. So a lot of those characteristics came from the research, and they made it, to the script. I mean, that was one of the things. The rigor was part of the script and the character that was built into the script. The rest of it, of course, I mean, you put basic, information in the script, and then it's the interpretation that Shreya built out of that. It's ultimately instinctive. That conscience of the character comes from your interpretation and instinct, and that Shreya has done, remarkably well.
Yeah. Sucheta?
So what I feel is that, when we say journalism of a certain kind, the difference is that this happened in the Times of India. Okay, there was no television there except Doordarshan, and Times was the biggest paper, and to that extent, it was very, very unusual. But there's a lot of good journalism happening even today in various sectors. Unfortunately, it's no longer mainstream because mainstream media is not doing it. And I must also mention that it's not as though in Times of India, I was very confident that I would have a lot of freedom to keep writing this, I mean, it was unfolding slowly, and a lot of times, whether it was the scam or whether it was Enron, one by one, the pressures used to mount and people were shut down. Enron was a good example where, they shut so many papers who were writing about it. I mean, I was a little more pig-headed and I would fight, and, I managed to last much longer. But eventually, I was out of the Times of India, right? And this is the fate of journalists who want to do this kind of stuff. They're no longer, there is good journalism happening. In fact, people are putting their lives on the line, but not much of it is in mainstream media.
That's true.
Pratik, I have to ask you, how has your life changed in the last week, 10 days? I mean, what's the response? And actually, this is for all of you, really. I mean, the responses to the show have been incredible, as they should. What has been, I mean, what has it been like for you? Pratik, do you live in Mumbai, or are you not in Mumbai? What is?
No, I'm absolutely in Mumbai.
Right. So what is the response been? I mean, personally, I mean, just the kind of, I'm guessing your social media is on fire. No?
Yeah, I mean, so all social media accounts are on fire. There are a lot of calls that I'm getting. A lot of people are messaging. Suddenly, from nowhere, I mean, the person that I must have met 20 years back, he suddenly called me. That I mean, you change, you are changed. You have become something else now. Everybody is talking about. The sweetest comment that I got from my daughter. She just came to me and she said, "Why, Papa, what have you done that so many people are calling you and they are saying they are proud of you?" I said, "Beta, they've just watched my show." She said, "But you have been working on stage and films. Why didn't they call then?" I said, "Because they have not watched me then." But so, I mean, this show has put me on a national, platform that way. So I have reached out to so many people suddenly.
Hansal, I read somewhere you said that this is, there was the original Hansal Mehta who made films back in the day. Then there was Shahid marked Hansal 2.0, and you've said this is Hansal 3.0. What is that meant to? What is in store then?
3.0 is work that is more successful. I've got a lot of love for what I have done in the last 10 years. But this kind of mass acceptance of the work, so I think you evolve. 3.0 for me, it's a constant process of evolving, introspecting, evolving. So, I introspected about my past work and I said, maybe I need to make my work a little more accessible. And I also need to loosen up a bit. I need to have fun. So that's what we did. I mean, Scam is a very smartly written show, and that was intentional. The cleverness, the dialogue, there's so many things. It's an attempt to make it, I never imagine my films getting so many memes. The dialogues becoming memes. My films getting a direct commercials.
Big deal.
And everybody.
That's a crazy thing.
These things don't happen to my films. They happen to David Sub, who, by the way, loved my film, who loved the show. Yeah. So, it has sort of crossed those boundaries, where peers and seniors who would, grudgingly accept my work, have accepted it wholeheartedly. So you have David Dalal, you have Bonnie Kapoor, who think अच्छी फिल्म बनाते लेकिन कोई देखता नहीं है. That was their opinion. But now they're all watching what I have done. Everybody has been, and it's incredible. Just now, somebody who never called me, and that's Madhur Bhandarkar. He called me, so he never called me. And so which is cut across cut across even political differences. That is the incredible thing. People who, politically are completely, they know my views and they are opposed to my, very vehemently opposed to my political views. Those people have, written very complimentary things. And I told them that this is the power of stories. And if, a good story goes beyond these, good stories are unifying. They don't polarize. And that I think is, and I think that is 3.0. I'm going to try and make my story, unify people, unanimously, people coming together. And that's what we became storytellers for, to gather people. So, this show and now the film, Chalang, this is completely new territory.
Right. Samir, how does this how does the success of this show sort of embolden you as a producer and as a company? I mean, of course, you're in the business of entertainment and you're in the business of making entertainment that is successful. And for a long time, this business, that meant dumbing down. That meant, appealing to the lowest common denominator. And you've often kind of, actually very frequently kind of, sort of stuck the neck out and done stuff which is, created material which may not look, on paper like something that is a surefire entertainer or a surefire success story. How does this embolden you to kind of take more, bold chances and sort of brave chances and tell the kind of stories that perhaps up until recently would be considered, like Sucheta said, it's taken so many years because people chickened out at some point.
But, actually, we've been doing this now, like when you ask about how's the reaction been and how does everyone feel about it. Honestly, at some level, we are also, supremely relieved because, the business model that we work with is that we don't actually get greenlit or commissioned by anyone to do this. So it's very like, like how we make a movie. Ours is a hybrid movie model. So for us, all the series we make are essentially movies. They're just long, it's cinematic television, right? Yeah. And we are going out there and, taking these decisions on casting, on story, on production, and spending the money and making it in the hope that once it's made and we show it to someone, they like it and then agree to license it. Right. So I mean, it gets like quite, it's quite an intense and so therefore we are quite obsessed and passionate about these things. I guess what this does, as you know, in this show, what we've done, we've gone even further out. We've named names, called people, I mean, it's as we say, it's as in the book, Correct. It's a true story and we are not shying away from telling this true story. Right. So I think it's more than emboldening, it is validation of what we've been doing. That, you can do these kind of things and it proves that, if you make good material, people will want to buy it and people will want to see it. And I think we should tell more such stories. We should. I mean, the whole opportunity with the streamers now is for us to tell stories that can resonate globally. Tell stories, because television at the end of the day did get stuck into the daily soap routine, right? Right. Which again, I take full credit and full responsibility, whichever way you want to go for it. But it is stuck in that type of storytelling, which is a form of storytelling. It's very successful. It made lots of money for everyone. But this is an opportunity now to do different things. And I think there are so many people who are telling good stories. All the stories that are coming out of India at this point in time are unique and different and refreshing. And of course, bad stuff does get made, but that's all part of the thing. So I think we are really happy. And this further proves we should do more like this. Correct.
Hansal, was it refreshing to be able to take names? I mean, that's something you've struggled for, and you've had those. I mean, the film business, unfortunately, is not conducive always to be able to actually name names and make an honest retelling in that sense. Was that a relief to be able to do that at this time around?
Of course. I mean, I've tried to do it always. Yeah. Whether it was Shahid, Aligarh, or Ometa, I've taken that chance, and I think it is possible to do it. As long as your lens is not judgmental. As long as you are telling the story with honesty. Honest storytelling is ultimately what matters. And in that honesty, if you take names, I think nobody takes umbrage to it.
Very true.
It's done with complete honesty. And one more thing I must say that this show, the success of this show, is a tribute to the audience that is watching it.
That's true.
We have been respectful of their intelligence. Very often, a lot of mediocre work comes from our disrespect of the audience's intelligence. We keep treating them like idiots. And so that, by respecting the audience and their intelligence, we have been able to tell the story, and the success tells us that, the audiences are ready for these stories. They don't keep telling filmmakers, koi samjhega nahi, don't do it, nobody will understand it, Take that step. This success will hopefully, spawn many more intelligent, stories, intelligent and engaging and newer stories. We fall short of stories because we are afraid to tell them.
Right. Right. So true, actually. And watching this show, it's just you really kind of marvel at just the extent to which we can. I mean, now tell stories. And you're right. The success is an indication of just how receptive the audience is, and just that perhaps storytellers didn't kind of respect them with that intelligence in the past to tell those kind of stories. So absolutely true. Thank you, gentlemen. I've been told that's all the time we have, ladies and gentlemen. This was incredible. Thank you for a great show. I mean, it's really one of those incredible shows that I think that we're going to revisit. It really is a chronicle of times and a chronicle of lives. Of actually, and I think that there it's an extension, Hansal, of what you've done. It's ordinary people who face sort of extraordinary circumstances, sometimes self-created, sometimes victim of circumstances. But I think that is the sort of running. If there is a running theme or a running thread in your work, it is that. Thank you for a wonderful, absolutely wonderful show. Thank you, Sucheta. Thank you, Shreya. Thank you, Pratik. Thank you, Sameer. Thank you, Hansal. I'm told that's all the time we have, but I thank you also for this wonderful chat. I hope that everyone that watched it enjoyed it as much as I had chatting with all of you. But thank you. This was really incredible.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
very
everyone.
much.